Hi, everyone. I'm Therese, and this is New York Girl Again, The After, the podcast for caregivers who have survived the hardest chapter of their lives and are now gathering both the courage and the strength to write the next one. Today marks the beginning of Season 2, and it's a very special day for me. It's Father's Day. Exactly 1 year ago, on Father's Day, I launched the very first episode of New York Girl Again, The After. That wasn't an accident. I chose Father's Day intentionally because my father was the final and most difficult chapter of a caregiving journey that spanned 25 years. For 25 years, caregiving shaped most of my adult life. It shaped my sense of purpose, my priorities, my schedule, my relationships, or in some seasons, my lack of relationships, and nearly every decision I made. Like many caregivers, I spent years focused on the needs of other people. And while caregiving taught me deep empathy, compassion, patience, resilience, and unconditional love, it also became part of my identity. In many ways, it became who I was. Then one day, the journey ended, and I found myself asking a question I wasn't truly prepared for. Who am I now? There are some resources for caregivers while they're caregiving. Books, support groups, organizations, advice. But what I discovered was that there are far fewer conversations about what happens after caregiving ends. When the role that defines so much of your life is suddenly gone. I call that chapter The After. And that is why New York Girl Again exists. When I launched this podcast 1 year ago, I wasn't launching it because I had everything figured out. Quite the opposite. I was trying to figure it out myself. I was trying to understand what it meant to build a life after caregiving, what it meant to rediscover myself, what it meant to move forward without leaving behind the people and experiences that had shaped me. And over the past year, through recording these podcasts and sharing my thoughts, fears, challenges, and victories with all of you, I've learned a lot. I've learned that grief doesn't follow a schedule. I've learned that loneliness can be one of life's most difficult teachers. I've learned that some chapters end without the closure we hoped for. I've learned that healing is rarely linear. And I've learned that while caregiving may end, the lessons it teaches us and the gifts it gives us always remain. Caregiving changes us. It changes how we see the world. It changes how we love. It changes what we value. And it changes how we understand what truly matters. One of the biggest lessons I've learned is that the end of caregiving is not the end of the story. In fact, for many of us, it's just the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter that can feel exciting one day and terrifying the next. A chapter filled with possibility, uncertainty, freedom, grief, hope, and sometimes all of those things at the same time. And that's what I want Season 2 to explore. Not just caregiving itself, but life after caregiving. This season, we're going to have conversations about health, movement, friendship, purpose, kindness, service to others, travel, creativity, loneliness, resilience, and joy, and how small acts of love, connection, and courage can help us build meaningful and rewarding lives after caregiving. Not because these are topics that are separate from caregiving, but because they're part of rebuilding a life again. They are part of becoming whole again. They are part of learning how to live in the after. Next week, I'll be joined by an amazing woman and dear friend, Teresa Grattan, founder of Flying Fabrics by Teresa, and a lifelong dancer. We'll talk about movement, confidence, creativity, and the power of reconnecting with ourselves through dance. And while it might sound like a conversation about dance, it's really a conversation about something much, much deeper. It's about rediscovering joy. It's about challenging yourself, trusting yourself, rebuilding confidence one step at a time, literally. And I think that's a conversation every caregiver deserves to have. As I reflect on Father's Day today, I find myself thinking about my dad all day. The final chapter of my caregiving journey. The reason I chose this day to launch season 1. And now, 1 year later, the reason it feels so fitting to begin season 2. My father taught me many, many things. Some through his words, although he was never a man who found it easy to express his feelings. Many through his quiet actions. And perhaps most of all, through the years I spent caring for him. But perhaps the greatest lesson was this. Love is not measured only by what we give during difficult times. Love is also measured by how we continue living afterward. How we honor those we've cared for. How we carry forward the lessons they taught us. How we continue to grow. How we continue to serve. How we continue to love. So if you're listening today and navigating your own after, I want you to know something. You are not alone. Your caregiving journey mattered. Your sacrifices mattered. Your love mattered. And even though that chapter may have ended, your story has not. As we begin season 2, I want to leave you with a question. If caregiving was one chapter of your life, what might the next chapter be? You don't need to know the entire answer today, and you certainly don't need to have a perfect plan. You only need the courage to take the next step. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for spending part of your Father's Day with me. And thank you for being part of the New York Girl Again community. Until next time, remember, your story is still being written.